Empires do not always fall in years. Sometimes it takes just one day. On the 18th of April, 1988, the United States Navy launched the largest surface naval battle since World War II, and nearly half of Iran's naval forces were annihilated in less than 24 hours. This was not a declared war. No formal battle lines. No media build-up. It was a war hidden behind the dust and salt of the Persian Gulf, triggered not by an invasion, but by a single underwater explosion. Amine, a frigate, a warning ignored. What followed was a swift, brutal message, one that the Islamic Republic of Iran and the world could not afford to miss. But why did the United States choose to strike so decisively? What geopolitical wires were tripped in that volatile spring of 1988 that made war preferable to silence? And why is Operation Praying Mantis a moment of overwhelming American dominance barely remembered today? By the mid-1980s, the Iran-Iraq War had degenerated into a desperate contest of attrition. It was supposed to end quickly. Instead, it bled into its 8th year, dragging half the Persian Gulf into its whirlpool. Iraq, under Saddam Hussein, had started the war in 1980, gambling that post-revolutionary Iran would be too weak to resist. What he found instead was a theocratic regime eager for martyrdom and revenge. By 1984, trench warfare on land had reached a stalemate. Both sides shifted strategy from static front lines to open sea. Commerce, oil, shipping, these became the new targets. The world called it the tanker war. The logic was brutal. If you cannot destroy your enemy's army, destroy his economy. Hundreds of commercial tankers, Kuwaiti, Saudi, even neutral, were caught in the crossfire. Mines, missiles, and suicidal speedboats made every oil route a potential graveyard. America could not sit idle. By 1987, the Reagan administration made a calculated move to protect global oil flow and prevent Soviet influence. The U.S. agreed to reflag Kuwaiti tankers as American vessels, giving them naval protection. This operation was codenamed Ernest Will. It was risky. American warships now had to escort convoys through mine-infested waters. Iranian Revolutionary Guard boats patrolled the Gulf like wolves. And Tehran, facing isolation, exhaustion, and economic collapse, grew increasingly aggressive. Then came the 14th of April, 1988. The USS Samuel B. Roberts and Oliver Hazard Perry-class frigate was on routine patrol in the Central Gulf. Calm seas, warm air, and a war they had so far watched from a distance. That morning, lookouts spotted strange shapes in the water, dark, bobbing objects. At first, they thought they were dolphins. They were not. They were Iranian-manufactured contact mines, deadly devices designed to explode upon magnetic proximity. Commander Paul Wren immediately ordered evasive action. Reverse engines, crawl out of the minefield. For 10 tense minutes, the frigate slowly backed away. Onto faded into Vena, a deafening explosion tore through the keel. Water surged in. Fires broke out. A 15-foot hole yawned beneath the ship's engine room. And yet, no one died. By sheer courage and coordination, the crew of the robbers kept the ship afloat through the night. Only 10 were injured. The ship would survive, but it was the last mine the U.S. Navy would tolerate. The mine's serial number, traced directly to Iran. 4 days later, President Ronald Reagan gave the order. The mission, Operation Praying Mantis, a proportional but unmistakable response to Iran's mining operations. But the Pentagon understood something deeper. This wasn't just retaliation. It was an opportunity to crush Iran's conventional naval power in a single coordinated blow and deter any further escalation without plunging the U.S. into full-scale war. 3 surface action groups were assembled. SAG Bravo, tasked with destroying the Sasan and Raksha oil platforms, both used as Revolutionary Guard staging bases. SAG Charlie, sent to disable the Siri platform. SAG Delta, assigned to sink any active Iranian warships, especially the feared Sahand and Sabalan, Iran's 2 most capable frigates. In support, the mighty aircraft carrier USS Enterprise, standing by with strike aircraft, ready to turn steel into ash. At dawn on the 18th of April, 1988, the Persian Gulf awakened to a new kind of war just after Su. 00 a.m., SAG Bravo approached the Sasan oil platform. The destroyers USS Merrill and USS Lynn McCormick, alongside the amphibious transport USS Trenton, loomed over the Iranian installation. These were not civilian platforms. For years, they had been used as forward observation posts and armed outposts for the Revolutionary Guard. Captain James Perkins aboard the Merrill issued a final warning in Farsi. "This is U.S. warship. You have 5 minutes to evacuate." Iranians aboard the platform scrambled to escape on 2 small tugs. Showing restraint, Perkins extended the deadline to 20 minutes. At 8:08 a.m., the guns opened fire. 5-inch shells screamed through the air. At first, they burst overhead, a final nudge for anyone left behind. The platform responded with anti-aircraft fire. ZSU-23 guns barked defiantly, but their rounds fell short. Perkins gave the order. This time, the American shells did not miss. The ZSU was silenced. The platform erupted in smoke and flame. As more Iranians evacuated, the Merrill and Lynn McCormick bombarded the installation for another 40 minutes, but it wasn't over. 2 Cobra gunships arrived, unleashing anti-tank missiles and 20mm cannon fire. Then, Marines from the Trenton landed via UH-1 helicopters. They planted demolition charges on what remained. At 1:10 p.m., the Sasan platform vanished in a rolling detonation. To the north, SAG Charlie performed a near-identical assault on the Siri platform. Destroyers USS Bagley and USS Wainwright issued warnings. Once again, Iranians evacuated. Once again, they opened fire. Once again, the Americans responded with overwhelming force. Gunfire, Cobra runs, explosions, flames. Navy SEALs prepared to land and seize the platform but were waved off. The target was already in ruins, too dangerous to approach. The secondary explosions from onboard fuel and munitions had reduced the Siri platform to a burning skeleton. In 2 coordinated actions, U.S. forces had eliminated 2 strategic outposts and sent a thunderous signal across the Gulf. Even in war, mistakes lurk behind the fog. As SAG Bravo prepared to engage the Raksh platform, their next target, an unknown contact, appeared on radar. It was closing fast. 25 knots. Captain Perkins ordered general quarters, weapons crews readied harpoon and standard missiles. Just before launching, a Seahawk helicopter identified the vessel. It was not Iranian. It was a Soviet Navy destroyer. Perkins demanded an explanation. The Soviet captain responded in thick English, "I want to take pictures." For history, Perkins lowered his weapons. A Cold War incident narrowly averted. This surreal moment, wedged between live combat operations revealed how close the Gulf had come to igniting not just regional, but global fire. Had the Soviet destroyer been misidentified, had it been struck, the world might have seen a second Cuban Missile Crisis. Sparked by a rogue radar return and a twitchy trigger, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard did not remain idle. By 11:00 a.m., their gunboats fast, nimble, and armed began striking any ship they could find. One civilian U.S. flag supply vessel, Vili Tide, was attacked. American air cover was activated. From above, six intruders from the Enterprise searched for the attackers. Commander Jim Engler found them Boghammer high-speed patrol boats, now turning toward an American oil platform. Please confirm, clear to engage. Engler radioed. His request climbed the chain all the way to President Reagan. The answer: engage. Engler and his wingman dove low, dodging gunfire. Their cluster bombs missed. They circled for another run. A direct hit scored. One Boghammer was shredded. The others fled. But Iran still had bigger weapons in play, its missile boats. Just before noon, the USS Bagley detected another radar contact, the Joshan, a French-built Iranian missile craft. Captain David Chandler aboard the Wainwright warned the vessel repeatedly to leave. The Joshan did not retreat. At 12:13 p.m., it locked radar onto the Wainwright and fired a Harpoon missile. Now it was war. The Simpson launched 4 SM-1 missiles. Wainwright added one more. All 5 hit the Joshan. The Iranian ship was reduced to flaming wreckage. Meanwhile, American chaff and jamming deflected the incoming Iranian Harpoon, which splashed harmlessly into the sea. Iran had fired first and now lost another ship. Moments later, Iranian F-4 Phantoms appeared on radar. As they approached, the Wainwright launched SM-2 anti-air missiles. One F-4 exploded midair. The other limped home. By early afternoon, the U.S. Navy had destroyed 2 platforms, 1 missile boat, and repelled an aerial assault without losing a single vessel. And yet, the biggest target was still at large. At 1:00 p.m., the destroyer USS Joseph Strauss of Sag Delta picked up a long-range radar ping, a warship moving fast through the Strait of Hormuz. Not just any warship. This was the Sahand, one of Iran's 2 prized Sam-class frigates. Modern, heavily armed, and a menace to neutral shipping. The rules of engagement were strict. Admiral Anthony Less, overseeing operations, demanded confirmation before ordering an attack. The Enterprise launched A-7 Corsair and A-6 Intruder aircraft to identify the vessel. At 2:40 p.m., one of the A-6s, flown by Deputy Carrier Air Group Commander Bud Langston, dove through the clouds at 50 feet above the water. His aircraft streaked in low over the stern of the ship. Suddenly, tracer fire erupted. Anti-aircraft crews aboard the Sahand opened fire, but Langston was flying too low. Their guns couldn't depress enough to hit him. Langston radioed a final warning on Iranian guard channels. "I'm going to sink you in 5 minutes." No reply. Langston made his attack run. His first Harpoon missile failed to launch. He pulled away, reset systems, and came back around. This time, the missile launched, cleanly screaming toward the Sahand. Then came the voice over comms. "Langston, what are your intentions?" "Well," he shot at me. "I'm now 12 miles out and I just launched a Harpoon." Seconds later, the missile slammed into the Iranian frigate. Langston wasn't done. He dove again and dropped a 500-pound laser-guided bomb, scoring another direct hit. As smoke poured from the Sahand, Langston transmitted coordinates for follow-up strikes. He lined up one final run, releasing two 1,000-pound skipper bombs. One missed, the other hit the bridge. By now, the Sahand was a burning ruin. The Joseph Strauss arrived on station and launched its own Harpoon missile. More A-6S and A-7S took turns pounding the frigate with skippers, rockeyes, and walleye-guided bombs. Finally, in late afternoon, the Sahand's onboard fires reached its ammunition magazine. The resulting explosion ripped the ship apart, the pride of the Iranian Navy gone. As the Sahand was disintegrating, another contact appeared. The Sabalan Iran's second Sam-class frigate, it too was ready to fight. Commander Jim Engler, refueled and rearmed, was directed to intercept. The Sabalan opened fire first, launching surface-to-air missiles. Engler evaded and climbed to 500 feet. Then he dove straight toward the enemy vessel. At a 35-degree angle, anti-aircraft guns hammered the sky. Shrapnel whizzed past the cockpit, but Engler held course and released a 500-pound bomb aimed squarely at the ship's engine room. It hit. The Sabalan lost power and began listing. Engler considered making another run, this time with cluster bombs, but the anti-aircraft fire was too heavy. He held back. More A-6S arrived. F-14S circled above. Then the order came from Washington. Defense Secretary Frank Carlucci and Chairman of the Joint Chiefs Admiral William Crowe had seen enough. We've shed enough blood today. The Sabalan would be spared wounded, humiliated, but still afloat. It limped back to port, under tow, a ghost of its former self. Chapter 9, The Final Shots, 150 words. That night, Iranian forces made one last gesture of defiance. Silkworm anti-ship missiles were launched toward Sag Delta. None hit. The Americans, having accomplished their objectives, did not retaliate further. Only two U.S. personnel were lost, both aboard a helicopter that crashed into the sea due to mechanical failure. Operation Praying Mantis was over. In one day, the U.S. Navy had destroyed two major Iranian platforms, sunk a missile boat Joshan, sunk a frigate Sahand, crippled another Sabalan, repelled an air assault, and endured no direct losses in combat. It was a demonstration of overwhelming force and restraint. A message sent through flame and steel. 4 months later, on the 20th of August, 1988, Iran and Iraq signed a ceasefire. The war that had devoured hundreds of thousands and dragged the U.S. into a murky proxy battlefield was finally over. But Operation Praying Mantis had left its mark. Iran's navy was shattered, its leaders stunned. Tehran, for all its ideological fervor, had tasted the cost of direct confrontation with a modern superpower. And yet, the world barely noticed. There was no parade, no headlines, only silence. Operation Praying Mantis was, by design, meant to be surgical, and it was surgically devastating. In less than 24 hours, the United States Navy had crippled nearly half of Iran's surface fleet. But its real achievement wasn't tactical victory, it was psychological dominance. For a nation like Iran, built on the myth of resistance and revolutionary defiance, this was a painful lesson. The lesson: ideology does not stop cruise missiles. Yet for all its might, the U.S. knew it was walking a razor's edge. there was no appetite for full-scale war. Washington's message was clear. Provoque us, and we will respond, but we will not escalate beyond necessity. In the months that followed, Iran drastically scaled back its Gulf operations. Its navy retreated to port. Its Revolutionary Guard units shifted focus inward. And when the ceasefire with Iraq was finally signed in August 1988, many believed that American firepower more than Iraqi offensives had tipped Tehran toward compromise. But the story did not end there. The memory of Praying Mantis stayed with Iran. They rebuilt slowly, deliberately investing not in traditional ships but in asymmetric capabilities, swarming fast boats, missile launchers hidden on civilian craft, and anti-ship missiles placed along narrow straits. In future decades, Iran would no longer try to match the U.S. ship for ship. Instead, they planned to bleed them by 1,000 cuts through proxies, mines, drones, and deniable aggression. It is a strategy born not from victory, but from the trauma of a single afternoon in April 1988. Chapter 12, Fog of Silence, 480 words. And yet, why do so few remember? Operation Praying Mantis is rarely taught, rarely mentioned. No war declaration, no medal campaign, no national speeches. Why? Because America didn't want escalation. The Silkworm missile attacks on Sag Delta that evening were quietly buried by the Reagan administration, omitted from public statements. The fewer headlines, the better. There would be no desire to provoke further Iranian humiliation. Diplomacy needed space. And silence was a tool. The media, then as now, followed the heat of conflict, not its aftermath. And this conflict had ended too cleanly, too quickly. But among naval officers, the memory is sharp. Among Gulf states, the message was lasting. And within Iranian military doctrine, the scars are still evident. Praying Mantis is not a myth. It is a warning one etched into the strategy of every Gulf confrontation since the Strait of Hormuz remains a powder keg. Ships still pass through its waters under tension. Mines still drift. Drones still fly overhead. Egg flare, each shadow on the radar, echoes back to that spring day when a modern superpower revealed just how fast it could shatter a navy. Final reflection, 360 words. There is no monument for the Sahand. No wreckage lies in public view. No survivors write memoirs. It is a ghost ship remembered only in combat logs and silent drills. But its destruction changed the Persian Gulf forever. One might say Operation Praying Mantis succeeded not just in deterring Iran, but in teaching them how not to fight the United States. It forced a doctrinal evolution. It shaped Iran's naval and irregular strategy for decades. From conventional surface warfare to asymmetric shadow play. Ironically, in defeating the Sahand and Sabalan, the U.S. may have eliminated Iran's ability to fight one kind of war only to inspire it to master another. So, what is the legacy of a war that lasted one day? Perhaps this: that modern conflicts are not always judged by territory gained or leaders overthrown, but by how long their aftershocks linger in strategy. In silence and in fear, legacy is not measured in hours. It is measured in how a nation remembers to never forget. Even today, the Strait of Hormuz remains one of the most strategically volatile corridors on the planet. A narrow choke point through which nearly 20% of the world's oil flows, and where navies maneuver under the weight of history. The waters may seem quiet, but beneath their surface lies an uneasy equilibrium shaped by the shadow of April 1988. Iran has since deployed a network of fast attack craft, missile batteries, minas, and submarines along its coast. Its navy may no longer be built to confront, but to complicate, to deter, to bleed, to stall the United States. In turn, maintains a constant presence aircraft carriers, destroyers, drones always watching, always rehearsing. And between them floats a memory of the day Iran fired and the day it paid. Not with occupation, not with regime change, but with the knowledge that provocation would no longer go unanswered. In that sense, Operation Praying Mantis remains one of the most successful limited naval engagements in American history. It combined overwhelming power with measured restraint. It was brutal, but not reckless. And in that balance lies its brilliance. Not every war needs a battlefield. Some need only a moment sharp, decisive, unforgettable. Closing line, 120 words. In the cold calculus of military history, Operation Praying Mantis might seem like a footnote, but in the halls of Iran's naval academies, it is a warning etched in steel, and in the corridors of the Pentagon, it is a template for precision escalation, the kind that punishes, deters, and withdraws before the fires spread. This is the kind of war that does not linger in headlines, but never leaves the minds of those who fight in its shadow. It lasted just one day, but it has echoed for decades. Legacy files,